Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1468. And you're probably wondering, if you're a regular viewer, you're probably sitting here going, hang on, it's the second Tuesday of the month. Where's Nicole? Well, Nicole's going to be on next Tuesday. She's got some stuff going on this week, so I wasn't unable to attend and be here. So you can look forward to her coming next Tuesday on August 15th. And now you get me with, hang on, what are we talking about? Oh, yeah. We're on core number 1468, appreciating the present. And I thought this is probably a good topic considering everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. So for those of you that missed yesterday, is that yesterday I got my book Staycation Challenge uploaded to Amazon, both in Kindle version and paperback version. Kindle version went live just before we went live last night. So it was like an hour and a half. So I think it was like around just about around 5:30, 5:40, somewhere around there, that the Kindle version went live. So we had a celebration for that with Chris. Chris Dyer was on last night. And then this morning I woke up because they told me it'd be 3 to 5 days for the paperback version to go live. And I woke up and at 4:48, there had been an email sent from Amazon to say my paperback version was live. So it's been kind of like, yes. And we've already sold some copies of it too. So I am super stoked. And I've been living in the moment all day. I haven't been looking forward to what's happening at the end of the day, what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't care right now. I am learning to be in the moment, be present, and be grateful for it. I'm looking forward to appreciating living in the moment. And when you do that, you can, all sorts of wonderful things happen. Because when you're living in the moment, sorry, I got stuff that's popping up on my screen. I got no idea why. Anyway, let's try this again. But when you're in the moment, you're not getting distracted by other things. You are living in this present point in time. You can do that, and it depends on what you're doing as well. Like this morning, we went out for our morning walk. It was a little later than we normally do. We usually get out there between 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, somewhere in that hour. But this morning we were out a little later because I was a little lazy this morning getting out of bed. I'm not going to lie. I was a little lazy getting out of bed. I have occasional days like that. And so we got up and went for a walk. And the one thing I like about going for a walk with Zephy is that Zephy has taught me to be in the moment and to be present in the moment. When I used to take her for a walk, I used to listen to audiobooks. I put earplugs in and we'll go for, and I could have conversations with people. It was very quick to just put things on pause and all that. And we'll go wandering around the campground, down to the dog park, and I would have the dog park. I had my earplugs out, but when we're walking around the resort, I'd have the earplugs in, listening to whatever book I was listening to. She was horrible on a leash. She walks really, really well on a leash when you are present with her. So once I took my earbuds out and started walking with her, she would walk beautifully on her leash. She would be more responsive to commands. And it's like she's saying, you're not being present with me. I'm not paying you any attention. I'm going to do my own thing. And so we had this battle. And then it finally dawned on me one day, well, let's try walking without the earplugs in and see what happens. And she was a completely different dog on the leash. And I'm like, huh. So now when we go out and walking, I'm present with her. I'm looking all, she's sniffing around. I don't know what got her nose up this morning, but we had this beautiful breeze blowing this morning on our walk. And all of a sudden she stops and she's like in alert mode. Her ears are up, her nose is up, and you can see her nose twitching as she was sniffing the air as the breeze was coming towards us. And then all of a sudden she would start moving towards one direction and stop and sniff again, and then she'd come back again. So I would be in that moment and watch her, and I'm looking around and going, what on earth is she catching? What scent is she catching? How far away is it? Because I never thought of that. I thought, how far away does a dog need to be able to smell something when it's coming on a breeze? But we had a great walk, and we were able to watch the butterflies. There was a whole bunch of dragonflies that were flying flying in and around each other. They were just like all over. There was no real pattern to their flying movement. This was this group of dragonflies that were off over the grass area, and they were just busy flying around. And I did not see a hummingbird this morning, though. Did not see a hummingbird. But I did see one last night, so that was okay. And it had the red breast, that red sparkly breast. If you didn't hear that, back when we did the 4-year anniversary show, I was talking about that morning I'd seen this hummingbird. And I get to see hummingbirds almost on a daily basis, which is fine because when I see the hummingbird, I always think of Brad. But that one day when we're doing the 4-year anniversary show, this hummingbird turned and got caught, and the sun caught this beautiful sparkly red. It was this deep red color, and it just sparkled in the sun. It was all shiny and sparkly, and was it yesterday? It was either yesterday or the day before. So it was either Sunday or Monday when we're out walking, and there's a hummingbird there, and I'm looking at it. It kind of looked like a gray colored one, and I turn around and go, "You're the one that came to me last week." And with that, the bird turned into the sunlight, and there was that beautiful red chest again. I was like, wow. But I'm talking with nature, being present in the moment. And I have to tell you, it's very freeing and very, it's just notice that you get to notice things like colors, textures, scents, sounds, tastes that just surround us. You get to commune with nature in a way because, we're out walking and we're seeing, oh my gosh, we walked out the front door this morning, and walking down the side of our house was the quail family. And if you haven't heard the stories about the quail family, it's mum and dad quail with their 10 chicks, and watching these chicks grow. And they've got the quails just amuse me. They have like question marks on their head that kind of flop forward. Have you ever noticed that? If you've never seen a quail, it literally looks like it has a question mark on its head that tips forward. Some people go, wait, what? Trust me, have a look at a quail next time. Have a look at a picture of a quail. And they're just funny. They're just funny creatures, and just the way they run so fast that their legs become a blur, and you just see this body moving over this blurry bit. It's hilarious. And we're just going outside for the walk, and they're busy going down the side of the house. And I thought, well, they ain't going to get far because there's a gate there. So they'll probably end up in the neighbor's yard. I don't know where they ended up, but I wasn't going to walk after them because Zeffie would have been very interested in them at that point. But you get to commune with nature by experiencing the sights, the sounds, the smells, the colors, the textures, and all of that. But you also get to be present, and we're watching bunny rabbits play this morning, just little baby ones where they were out there playing. And the quails, the quails always have one at the front and one at the back, one adult at the front, one adult at the back. And the chicks are herded in between. One's leading the way to safety. The other one's making sure they don't lose any of the chicks along the way. And they'll run across the road. And one parent will be left on one side of the road, one parent on the other side of the road with the chicks in between. And they've got this weird little sound that they make. I know this sounds really weird. And the chicks will stop at the edge of the road until that parent gives another little series of clicks, and then they'll go running across the road. So it's sort of like the parents making sure the road's clear before allowing the chicks to go across the road. But it was interesting just watching them. And then the dragonflies, they were all over they were in this one area, and there was no pattern to how they were flying around. They just, whichever direction they wanted to fly to, but they stayed in this one. It's almost like they had an invisible field around them, that they weren't going outside this invisible field. But if I'd had my AirPods in, would I have noticed that this morning? Probably not, because I would have been more interested in what the book was saying, because I wasn't present in the moment. But when you're present in the moment, it's when you're going to make decisions, there's a greater clarity and intention when you make a decision. When you're in the moment, you're not distracted by other things around you. You're there in the moment. It helps reduce your stress and anxiety as well, because when you allow the noise in, there's so much going on around you that it actually raises your stress levels. But if you cut out the noise and you're just in the moment and you're present in the moment, it's very calming, very relaxing, and you're able to focus on, this is the task I am doing right now, and you can be in the moment in that task. And that's what happened with me over the last 3 days when I was trying to get this book done. I started writing it on Friday night, did a lot of writing on Saturday, did a lot of writing on Sunday. And when I was writing, I was in the zone. People call it being in the zone. When you are in the zone, you are present at that point in time. You are present to what you are doing. You have quietened out the noise. Some people will put on noise cancelling headphones. I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. Where are my noise cancelling? They're either here or they're still in the RV. Put on noise cancelling headphones is one way to help cut out the noise so you can be present in the moment. One way that I like to do is there's certain classical music that if you have it playing in the background, there's certain classical music that will help reduce your stress, help bring you present in the moment so you're able to concentrate on what it is that you're doing and you can be there and connect with whatever it is that you're doing. And when you're truly present, you develop a sense of gratitude for the little things around you that go unnoticed. It could be the fact that, I have my little roll-on of frankincense sitting here, and I love this stuff. You know what this stuff is good? It's good for so many things, but my favorite thing to do with this little ball is to go, and this is I don't want to say a watered down. This has got fractionated coconut oil in it, but you put it there, and then you just take your ring fingers, because they apparently have the least amount of pressure. They're like your weakest fingers, I think is what they say. And you just circle it around the eyes. And you're probably going, why are you doing that? Because 1, it's good for the skin. 2, it's good for the bags under your eyes. And 3, it actually can help improve your vision. It may help improve your vision. Sorry, I get the language right. But it's just being thankful that I'm able to have that little bottle there with the little roller thing there. And it's been grateful for, thankful when I can listen to the music that I've got going. I at one point put the music on while I was writing. I got so lost in the moment that the music had stopped. I'm like, what the heck? And the music, and I realized that the playlist I had only went for 57 minutes, and I had been in the zone writing for 57 minutes and had done, almost 2,000 words in that minute, in 57 minutes. I was like, oh, guess I should have put that thing on loop. But being grateful for that. And when you're present in the moment, you're more open to receiving information, to learning personal learning, and you learning something new. You're more open to personal growth. So there's a lot of things that when you are there in the moment, things go a lot smoother. You get rid of the multitasking stuff, which I'm sort of like, yes, I like that. Because there's times when I get lost in the multitasking, like I'm sitting here and I'm doing this and I get distracted by this over here. So I've got to finish this up to come over here to do this, or I've got to go here and do that. Or, I get easily distracted. And I like it when I can center myself and get present in the moment. Sometimes I will start the times off with some meditation just to help bring me back into self. Other times it's just putting the music on that will help bring me back into so I can be present in that moment to get things done. So I am always appreciative of whatever is going on around me, where I can appreciate the present moment of being in that moment. Sorry, I now just got distracted by chats because I had the chat closed and I just opened up the comments to see because I saw there were some comments there. So I just got distracted because I was present in the moment talking to you, and now I've got myself distracted. Oh, Tony, he's my CP son. CP being Cruise Planners. We've known each other since September 2009. We met on a cruise that had, there was a group of travel professionals. We went on a cruise with Norwegian as part of our PhD at sea, part of their training program. You had to go through all these different levels of training, and then your final one was this graduation or your PhD in for Norwegian for their class levels and things. And that was part of the reward of completing your PhD at sea, was to actually go on a cruise. And they took a group together so you could see how groups were handled by the cruise line. And it was a really cool cruise. Brad and I, it was the first time we had been cruising. We had been on cruise ships, but we had not sailed. We had been, because we'd been to franchise training earlier that year in March, and we got to walk on cruise ships, but we didn't actually get to sail. So we got to do this amazing, that's when we had okay. So getting sidetracked again, because it brings up memories. One of my favorite fruits is peaches. I love peaches and nectarines. I love those ones that have the stones in them. But whenever I go to the market to get them, they're too hard. You got to have them So they're soft and they're juicy, and when they're too hard, they're no good. And Nicole actually posted something about, what's your favorite healthy peach recipe? And I go, just as it is, just natural. That's my recipe. But when we were up in Seattle the night before the cruise, because we were doing the Inside Passage, and Alaska was somewhere that I'd always wanted to go. We were down at Pike's Place Market. We'd gotten a taxi to drive us down there. This is before the days of Lyft and Uber. And so we got a taxi down there. We did a horse carriage ride around Seattle, the Central Business District, which was awesome. We went to the Pike's Place Market because it's somewhere I'd always wanted to be, always wanted to go. And there was a guy there who was literally with this big peach, and we're talking softball size, not baseball size, softball size. And he's just slicing off slices of this peach, and you can see the juice running down his hands and arms. It was yum. It was so delicious. And so we decided to get 2 peaches and 2 nectarines. And the guy looked at us very concerned and said, are you going to be eating these tonight? And we went, yes. He said, good, because they won't last till tomorrow. And I said, so not save one for breakfast? He was like, no. But it was okay, because the hotel we were staying at had breakfast included in our rate and stuff. And so we took back to the hotel these 2 peaches and these 2 nectarines. That's all we ate for dinner, were these peaches and nectarines. Oh my gosh, they were so good, so juicy and sweet, and just the way a peach and a nectarine should be. But it was amazing. And then, of course, the next morning we got up and had breakfast at the hotel. We kind of lazed around because we didn't have to be down to the ship till 12. I think it was, 11 was where we had the taxi booked for 11 o'clock to pick us up at the hotel. So we just kind of, because the only reason we went at 11 is because that's when we got kicked out of the hotel. That was their checkout time. So we had a lazy start to the morning. We had breakfast. We went, got our checked out and everything else, got in the taxi, went down, checked in, boarded onto the ship and all of that. And it wasn't until the group had a cocktail party that evening. And that's when we met Tony. It was an awesome trip. We had the most amazing time. It was incredible. And that was our very first cruise that Brad and I had ever taken. Apart from doing a ship tour, we'd never cruised before. So that was awesome. And we actually got some rough seas. And how was Helen? Helen was fun. And it was interesting. And the funniest thing though was when we were on the ship, they actually had a session, and we had sessions. Do we have to do them? I'm trying to remember if we did them on port days or not. Maybe just been the sea days. But we had a theater room that we would go in. It was a theater. It was actually, tiered seating. And I happened to be Brad and I were sitting in the front row there, and they had the hotel director up there, the chief engineer, and the guy in charge of food and beverage. And so the 3 of them are sitting there, and they said, has anybody got any questions? And I said, I have a question. And they go, what's your question? I said, well, this is the first time my husband and I have ever been on a cruise. And you should have heard the gasps through the room. And, we've been selling cruises for 18 months and we'd never been on one. And she goes, really? I said, yeah. And I said, I come from the hotel industry. So it's been very interesting seeing how your staff, manage things. They're making up rooms twice a day and comparing your hotels with the staff on the cruise ship. And she said, well, so what's your question? I said, well, I heard about these towel animals. And I said, I haven't seen one yet. And this was night 4 of the cruise. We hadn't got a towel animal. Every time we went back to our room, I'm like, we got one tonight. We got no. And you keep seeing all these posts about people getting towel animals. You're hearing the stories about them and all of that. And she goes, well, what's the room number? So it was 9012. Still remember the room number. And Brad and I went back that night, and he opened the door, and he opened the door and then stood back so I could go in, and he's standing there in the doorway, and I go, what's the matter? And he goes, oh, you have started something. I go, what do you mean? There was every kind of towel animal all over our stateroom. There was a monkey hanging from those clip hangers on the curtains. There was this alligator across the bed. There was I just started laughing. There was animals on the desk. There were animals all over the bed, on the chairs. We had no clear space. There were just towel animals everywhere. They had gone nuts in that room. And the next day was when we were out in the Gulf and we hit the rough seas, and we were literally going like this. We could not go out on our balcony. We were far enough forward that if we went on our balcony, we were watching the sea spray coming up, and we were up on deck 9 and towards the front, and we were watching the sea spray coming over our balcony and hitting our windows and everything else. And so we went downstairs and we were down on the public areas, and I said to Brad, I says, I need some fresh air. I got to get me some fresh air, because if Helen's in rough seas, she needs to put her on fresh air. And so we actually met the hotel director there, and she said, and I said, I have to thank you so much for the surprise last night. She said, oh, you liked it, did you? I went, oh yeah. And then she noticed this gun. She says, what are you doing? And I said, we're going out to get some fresh air. She says, are you sure you want to go out there in this weather? I says, oh yeah. I said, as long as I get fresh air, I'm okay. And she's like, okay, we'll just be careful. I says, I promise we will not go near the railing. We will stay back. And she's just like, okay, but I said, the doors aren't locked, which means we could go out there. And she's sort of like, yeah, she was a little hesitant about letting us go out there, but we went out there, got a full thing of wind. I mean, we could barely open the door to get out. Brad and I, took two of us, Brad and I both together, to get the door open, and we go out there on the promenade, and up against the wall there, hanging on. They had some railings there that you could hang on to, and I'm hanging on to it, and I'm just getting this wind blowing in my face and the sea spray coming in my face as well. It was awesome. It was amazing. And I remember walking around, and some people were you could literally see green on their faces. Some of them were not very good sailors with rough seas. But, you know, I went we went and had breakfast, we had lunch, we had dinner, and the ship's going like this. And it was nose to tail. It wasn't side to side. That's what stabilizers are for. Stabilizers stop the corkscrewing of a ship. It's help when the stabilizer out, you're going more, it's the backwards and it's the forward and backwards motion. So it's the nose down, the bow down, the stern up, and then switching over. So it's that rocking motion when you're on the seas and stuff. But they weren't that rough. I mean, I said to Brad, I says, we've done rougher than this. He's sort of like, what do you mean? I says, you remember that time that we crossed the Cook Strait in New Zealand? He's sort of like, oh yeah. When we crossed the Cook Strait in New Zealand, I have one, when I'm on the inter-island ferries, my favorite place until they redesigned the ferries is find where the bar is, because it's in the center of the ship, which is usually the most stable area to be. And out the back, they would have an open air area with tables and that. And my table would be the middle table with my back to the bar. And then you'd have three walls. So the back was open. And I'm sitting out there reading a book. And we are going through 12-meter swells. 12 meters would be 36 feet swells. Yeah. Some of you go, 36 feet. There's 3 feet, about 3 feet to a yard. And a yard and a meter is just slightly longer than a yard. So 3 feet to a yard and a meter is slightly longer. And so yeah, about 36 feet swells we were going through from the South Island to the North Island, across the Cook Strait. And there's people all around. There's kids screaming and crying because mum and dad are throwing up. There's people throwing up all around me. And what am I doing? I'm just sitting there reading my book, not bothered by anything. And Brad comes out, and I told Brad where I was going to be. So he comes out at one point, and he sits next to me, and because they're bench seats, so he sits next to me and he goes, what are you doing? I says, reading. And he goes, all of this is not bothering you? I went, no. He was like, I'm going back inside. And I'm like, okay. So you're going to go back with your parents, because mum and dad were up near the top somewhere in a 3-sided sheltered area as well. But middle of the ship, out the back. I says, as long as I have fresh air, I'm okay. So yeah, so when we did that on the cruise ship and we're doing that, I says, this is nothing compared to what we did on the ferry that time. And but it only lasted that one day that we had the really rough seas and the rain, and it was raining as well and windy. It was awesome. Some of you are probably going, she's nuts, she's crazy. Yeah, I am, but deal with it. Otherwise, bye. So it was a really great cruise. And like I said, I got to meet, Tony was one of the people I got to meet on there. We got to meet some great people on that cruise, and we've developed some long-lasting friendships because of the people we met on that cruise. And it was awesome. Learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and learned some stuff that I was sort of like, Oh, I'd always wondered about that. So it was very entertaining, and for a first cruise, absolutely loved it. And I've now done, how many have I done since then? Oh, I don't have my, I have ship magnets that I usually put on the side of my filing cabinet, but I haven't found them all yet. But I think it's something like about around 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there. But yeah, love everyone. And Tony said he's up to 70. That would not surprise me at all. He's been cruising a lot longer than I have. I've only been cruising since 2009, and there was times that we couldn't go cruising in a year because of Brad and his treatments and everything else. But and of course his passing and everything else. So, but since Brad passed, I have done 2 cruises, and I did them both in the same year. The first one was good, but it was one of the worst experiences I have ever had on a cruise ship, only because I was on there by myself with over 3,000 strangers. And I had a really bad grief attack in the middle of the safety training thing. But it turned out to be a good cruise. Overall, it was a good cruise. And then December that year, got to go on Carnival Horizon, and I've been part of the Travel Partners Advisory Committee for 2 years. And so they took all of us that have been part of that committee on the cruise, and it happened to leave on my birthday, which was awesome. And they took such great care of me on my birthday, and had surprises for me and that, and it was awesome. It was amazing. And I knew people on that cruise, so the second time was easier. But I haven't been on a cruise ship since then, since 2018. So my first cruise was supposed to be February of this year, but I came back from Tampa with COVID. I came down with COVID like 2 days after I got back from Tampa. 3 days. Got back, 2 or 3 days after I got back from Tampa. And so ended up missing my cruise, which was the week after I got back. So I got back home on the Sunday, and then the following Saturday I was supposed to leave to head to California to get on a cruise ship with my mastermind group, and had to miss that with COVID. And so we've now got another one planned in January. So fingers crossed that that's going to be the next cruise I go on. I need to get on a cruise ship. I absolutely need to. I didn't realize how soothing and calming a cruise can be. People get on there and they're all over the place and everything else. And I was sort of like, for me, I find my quiet spot. And on a cruise ship, you can find a quiet spot. And people go, how do you find a quiet spot on a cruise ship? Trust me, there is a method. When you get on, so, oh, there you go. Sounded like she was right behind me. So when you go on a cruise ship, if you get on early enough, you go straight to the buffet to have lunch before everybody gets on the ship. It gets the later in the day it gets closer to the cruising, the crazier it gets in the buffet area. Once that is done, now you can't get into your cabin until around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And so you've now got this time, you got on the ship like around 11 or 12, you've had lunch. Now what do? You walk up to the top deck, and then you start walking down and using the stairs at either end, and you zigzag and you skip the cabin only decks. Now, most cruise lines will give you a map when you get on. With all the COVID stuff, I don't know if they still give out the little maps anymore, but there's maps all over the place. And so you figure out which ones and then what you do is you go and you find everything. You will end up at the spa as one of the first places that you'll end up in, because it's usually up the top there somewhere. And so you go in and you ask, what are your embarkation day specials? And book yourself in for a massage, at least a massage. And this is why. When you go on vacation, it takes you 2 to 3 days to get into vacation mode. If you have a full body massage at the beginning of your vacation, you get into vacation mode a lot quicker, so you get to enjoy everything. Because if you're on a 7-night cruise and it takes you 2 to 3 days to get, I'm in vacation mode. So finally you get to relax and you're not thinking of everything. You really get into the cruise, you're enjoying it, and you get back to your cabin on night 4, and there's all the departure information there that you've now got to start filling in and everything else, and submitting, so that you can get your departure luggage tags and all that sort of stuff. And it's sort of like, and so now you're kind of gearing up and thinking about that. So if you get on embarkation day, you go to the spa. They usually have really good embarkation day specials. You get your massage. I got a massage, a facial, and there was something else in there. There was 3 things, and it was $120 for the 3. which was amazing value. And I was in vacation mode. I was relaxed. I was not thinking of business. I was just thinking of the cruise. It was awesome. So that's what you do. And then you book yourself in for that. And it's always after the safety drill. You always want to book it after the safety drill. And then you carry on your touring down. And when you're doing this touring around and everything else, you find where the quiet places are. And I learned this on the first cruise because I never did this on the first cruise because I didn't know to do this on the first cruise. And it was like 2 days before we were due to disembark, I found my reading spot. I'm like, damn it, I didn't know that was there. So after that, I came up with, this is what you do when you get on a cruise ship. And so the next cruise we went on, I did that and I found my reading spot. And I like to have a reading because it's a reading/writing spot. And it doesn't matter how many people are around me, this is my spot. And they can be quiet or it can have a whole bunch of people, especially on sea days. That's my spot. And I'm in my zone when I'm in my spot. So there's lots of different ways that you can get in the present moment and get zoned in, and you get zoned in and you can tune out everything else when you get into that moment where you're completely present in what it is you're doing. Like if I'm sitting there reading, I can easily block out everybody else. If I'm sitting there writing, I can do the same thing. But when you're in the moment, appreciate it. Appreciate that moment that you're in, because amazing things happen in those moments. You can come out with if you're writing, like, I'm talking writing right now because I'm back into the mood I'm back into the writing mode right now. So if you're into the writing mode, the reading mode, whatever it is, doing crossword puzzles or something that requires pen and paper and not an electronic device, something that doesn't require an electronic device unless you're reading on a Kindle, which when traveling, Kindles are a must. Brad found that one time when I took 5 books with me on a plane, and then 3 days later I was like, I need to go get some more books. He was like, what? Yeah. And then I got a couple but whenever I'm flying, for whatever reason, I can't read my Kindle when I'm flying. So my routine when I get to the airport after I get through security is go find one of the magazine stores or the bookstores, go find a book, usually James Patterson or David Baldacci or Brad Thor are the 3 main ones that I go for. There's another one, the other Brad. Anyway, so I know my 4 authors that I go for, and I go and look at their books, and if they've got a book out that I haven't read yet, that's the book I get, usually paperback, sometimes a hardback because I may not have it in a paperback, and that's the book that I read on the plane. And most of the times I will have it all about finished, depending on where I'm flying to. If it's a 5-hour flight, that book will be almost done by the time we get to wherever we're going. And I put my noise cancelling headphones on, I play El Devo and read my book. But for some reason, I can't read a Kindle when I'm flying. I have to read a real book. It has to be in my hands. So that's my routine for flying. You now know my routine for when I get on a cruise ship, finding my little spot. And if there's somebody sitting in my spot, that's okay, because I have backups. Because when you walk in the ship, you find backup spots. And it could be that day you want some fresh air. So you've got a fresh air, you have a fresh air spot, you have an inside spot. You find the spots, but they're not in the cabin. So that's basically it. So just whenever you're in the zone or in that moment, be appreciative of it. And because when you're coming from a place of gratitude, it's coming from a great place of gratitude and love. So amazing things happen when you're coming from that spot. So that's it from us for today. And Tony wants to do a cruise. Yeah, let's do a cruise together. Not sure when. My schedule's getting filled up. Not sure when, but let's do that. But anyway, that's it from us for today. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Find your spot. Find your spot where you can sit and you can be present in the moment, where you need to get something done. Like if you've got something you need to write, you've got something that you need to do, something you need to concentrate on, get in your spot and get that done without the distractions. Like I have this little fidgety, I don't know if you know, playing with my little fidgety thing here. It's got little wheelie thing. It's got clicky wheels. It's got a switch that goes back and forth. It's got a little button to press. This thing here on the side, you've got to grab it with a nail to spin it. It's got the 5 little buttons. I think that's everything, little button on top. So yeah, I fidget. Even when I'm present in the moment, I'm fidgeting. I If I'm, oh, I just don't know. Even if I'm sitting and writing, I will have something in the other hand that I'm playing with while I write. But that's part of me being present and in the moment. Anyway, I'm out of here. Go get present in the moment. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here at 6 p.m. Pacific. Actually, I think that's right, isn't it? Yes, 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening. Hei konera.